Hello, this is Sandra Lee, and I am doing the first of the Tuning Up to Thrive conversations. I'm so excited to have this series. With me today, I have a wonderful guest, April Novoa. I have interviewed her previously about her near death experience, and it was an amazing conversation. So I encourage you, if you haven't done so, to go and watch that as well. Today, we want to talk about where are we going?
Mm.
A new earth. And how can we make empowered choices with the things that are going on in the world? Because right now, there's a lot of crazy stuff happening,
Mm-hmm.
just to be honest about the reality. And I sometimes feel kind of out of control when it comes to where we're going. And I don't like that. I want to feel empowered, again, to make choices, to go places where we all feel good and we want the things to happen that are positive, that are evolutionary in a positive direction. And April has a lot of thoughts to share about that.
Well, thank you, Sandra, so much for having me today. I'm honored to be here with you as always, and I appreciate you. I appreciate how much of an encouragement you are to everybody, and just all that you do. I really do. And hello, everybody. My name is April Novoa. I'm a human design specialist and a Gene Keys guide. And like Sandra said, talked to her about my ND pretty fresh after all that happened. I guess probably almost a year ago now, maybe longer. I can't remember the date exactly. But I want to read this quote by Dr. Glenn Patrick Doyle. We are not ourselves when we're triggered. We become who we think we need to be to survive. And when we're constantly being triggered, our identity can start to slip away because our personality and values are constantly getting hijacked by fight or flight reflexes. And I open with that because I think in order to go forward and to become empowered in bringing this new earth online, and we're all co-creators of that, we need to acknowledge and feel validated and feel what we've experienced, and not to stay there, but I think we have a tendency sometimes to skip over things, and not process them, and they don't go anywhere when we do that. So we need to work with them. We need to accept what has happened. We need to allow those things to come up for us, and we need to embrace those wounded parts of ourselves. So we aren't ourselves when we're triggered. And I think most people could say that they have felt kind of triggered in the last 3 years, right? We have endured sustained collective stress and, in many cases, trauma for the last 3 years via our media, our government, and in some cases from one another, because triggered people trigger people. Stressed people stress people. Traumatized people traumatize other people. So this has gone on, and our world is in need of healing right now. And in order to do that, we have to go in. The only way out is through. So, in my opinion, on a side note, I believe that much of this is due to the global transits that are happening. The fact that we're passing in from one epoch to a new world, to a new earth. And as Richard Rudd would say, the great change is about to occur. And it's a really positive thing. What's positive about it? I believe we're moving into a time of interconnectedness like we have never seen before, where we take others as ourselves. We truly love one another. I think that we are moving into a time of personal sovereignty and individuation. So much of it, in my opinion, has a great deal to do with the upcoming shift into a new epoch. Any birth requires a labor, and whether or not you've ever experienced that, you have given birth to things in your life, whether that's your business or relationships or creative pursuits. So you know that it's part and parcel to the process to have times of difficulty, and I think that's what we've been through. So what is coming up, in my opinion, based on what I've been kind of intuiting, and also picking up from other very respected people, is this interconnectedness, a personal sovereignty, respect for one another, love and respect for one another, and individuation. But we still have a little ways to go before we get there. So I want to talk about empowerment, because in order to become empowered, which is the goal, we need to access where we are, take inventory. When I worked in the medical field, we called this triage. So we would choose who was seen first. If there was, a major emergency and there was a lot of injured or ill, we would triage, meaning what needs attention first. So when you take inventory of your own life, you have to spend some time kind of taking stock and finding out what parts of you need the most attention first, stop the bleeding. And then we can go a little bit deeper. So this is so that we can heal, recover, and then not just heal and recover, but navigate what's ahead for us. So to bypass this important work at this time has the potential to add to whatever injuries we might have sustained, and we don't want that. So we need to do this healing work. So if you find that difficulties that you've suffered some difficulties, like most of us have in the last 3 years, and they've impacted you in a negative way, you are in need of healing, restoration, and a strategy to navigate the coming waves. Jon Kabat-Zinn said, and I quote, "You cannot stop the waves, but you can learn to surf." So let's learn to surf. Sandra, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. Yeah, so learning to surf, because, nature is nature. We don't need to fight her, but we do need to work with her. So how can we surf these upcoming changes? I've kind of broken it down into 2 categories, but some of them are a little interchangeable. One being spiritual and mental. I kind of combine those, and then the physical. It's really important to say that there's not a one size fits all. That one mode of healing might be really powerful for one person, but it just doesn't work for the other person. So what I would really encourage people to do as they heal, they become restored, and they navigate what's ahead, is to find your sweet spot. Don't limit yourself. Like, for example, meditation. That's a very good example. I tell people, oh, you should meditate. It's wonderful. It's very healing. But so for some people, that's really hard. So they might need to look at another modality, or they might need to take off the expectations around that. When I first started meditating, I could only meditate for about 5 minutes. And it was just so difficult. But what I learned from a teacher was to think of my hand and feel every finger. And eventually I did that with my entire body. And that kind of helped my brain to, slow down the chatter so that I could learn to be quiet. And so find what works for you. There's not a one size fits all. And then don't make it something that has to be perfect, because some days it's just not going to be perfect, right? Some days yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I'm somebody who definitely does the have to be perfect thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't work.
No, it's almost counterintuitive, isn't it?
Yeah, and it keeps me stuck and feeling unhappy and like it's never good enough.
Yes.
And we're both human design people.
Yes.
And the whole perfectionism and being in control thing is the strongest energy in my human design chart.
Wow.
So recognizing that I came here to have these experiences and learn these lessons helps me.
Yes.
Helps me to understand, oh, This isn't just me doing
Right.
my thing. There's
Yeah.
actually a point to it.
Exactly. Exactly. And even the mistakes have information. You know, even what we think are mistakes have information. They're not actually mistakes. They're data. It's how we learn. Oh, I tried, that guided meditation, and that definitely didn't work. I tried the loving kindness one. I couldn't concentrate with that. Too many words. I tried, singing bowls. Oh, that works. Like, so you have to play with it and then really give yourself a break when something doesn't work that day, because we just have days, right? I have a defined will. I think we almost have the same design. We have a very similar design. I'm a 3/5 with a defined will manifester. So I know all about the control and wanting to have everything perfect. And then the frustration that you feel when it doesn't happen, and then just kind of wanting to toss it. But, that's information. Like, okay, maybe there's a different way to do this, or maybe it's not for me and I need to try something else. So, not one size doesn't fit all. Some days are not going to be what you'd like them to be. Sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, 1 step back, 3 steps back. That's okay. We get up the next day and we do it again. So under the spiritual mental category, first, self-love. Do you love yourself? And what does that mean? Does that mean that you say no to certain commitments? Does that mean that you get more rest, that you put that thing down and go to sleep? Does that mean that you nourish yourself with really good food? Does that mean that you hang out in nature, or sit and pet your dog? What does that mean to you? What makes you feel loved? That's very, very important. Inner child work. What kind of parent are you to yourself? Like, if a 4-year-old, spilled his milk, would you be angry at him? Can you regard yourself as that child that, oh, I made a mistake, but I still love you and it's okay. And, we'll clean it up and we'll go forward, and you're not a bad kid because this happened. So, really doing the inner child work of reparenting ourselves, because a lot of us didn't grow up in situations where we felt, nurtured and loved. Not because our parents didn't love us. Maybe they just didn't have the skills to know how to do it because they couldn't do it for themselves, right? So that's the inner child work.
And then we internalize
Yes.
those ways of being, those belief systems, those shoulds.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's where it has the biggest impact.
That's right.
Because I continue to repeat that old
Yes.
pattern.
Yeah, we shouldn't be shitting on ourselves and we shouldn't shit on other people, because we're all just doing the best we can. And sometimes our best isn't the same as our best was yesterday or tomorrow. And that's okay. Shadow work, which is my work. I do a lot of that with my clients. And that's really about, it's very similar to inner child work, in that you see the parts of yourself that maybe you've rejected and you don't like too much, but you learn to love and accept them and allow them and embrace them. And then what do? They start to transmute into higher expressions. It's to hate on yourself and hate on those wounded parts, or reject parts of yourself, only makes them want to scream louder, like a little child. You ever notice if they want a cookie and you don't listen, the volume goes up, right? And that's what happens with our shadows. They start to express in ways that are not productive and are not skillful in our lives, and really trip us up. But if we can really embrace them, we can find the gift within the shadow. So that's shadow work. Another work I would mention is soul retrieval, which I do not personally do, but there are shamanic practices where this is done. The idea being that when you had trauma or wounding, there was a certain kind of disassociation that occurred, and that there's parts of us that are just not fully integrated. And that is not my specialty, but there are people that do that work beautifully. Solitude, which is really my chosen way to heal. And that gets, sometimes that's not for other people. Some people, they really need to be in community to heal. I'm one of these people that needs time away in space to really hear my own voice and integrate and feel my own energy, and work with it in solitude and introspection, like really practicing inquiry around what's going on with you today, April. Why are you feeling so tense right now? What's going on? Journaling about it and just kind of exploring where that might be coming from. A media fast, not real popular with a lot of people because we are, kind of addicted to our media. We have social media now, which, you and I didn't have when we were growing up. The news was like, I didn't know the news till 5 o'clock in the afternoon here in the States. And I didn't want to know most of the time because I was a kid. But, I just lived in this kind of blissful space, unaware of what was going on in the world 24/7. Now we have access to tons of information, and some of it's not real accurate. Some of it is kind of meant to kind of sway us and help us to form opinions that maybe we wouldn't necessarily have, but it can be kind of overwhelming in the form of social media and the news. So one of the things I recommend to people is pick a day during the week to just black out, like turn it all off, spend time in nature with family, with friends, cooking, dancing in your kitchen, petting your dog, do something enjoyable and just put the world on a shelf for a day. It will not end. I'm fairly certain that tomorrow when you wake up, it'll all be there again. I personally take off the month of November from social media. It's called No Social Media November, or it's a digital detox. And I try to stay away from all of it as much as possible. And one of the things I find when I do that, I have time. I have an unbelievable amount of time. It's incredible. So if you want to have more time, consider taking at least a day off, or if you really want to jump into the deep end of the pool, opt for an entire month and see what happens. Just unplug for a bit, and it is, you will go through a little bit of withdrawal. My friend and I did it together, and she said, my thumb keeps moving towards Instagram. And, and I said, me too. I accidentally, hit it a few times. We did it together. So there is an addictive quality to it. And it does, at the end of that month, though, it feels really good. But in the beginning, it can be a little bit of a struggle. But I highly recommend, just picking a day once a week to just, shut it all off, unplug. It's a beautiful thing to do. And we talked about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think that what we're talking about is redefining what's normal.
Yes. Yes.
And, changing something like my social media intake is a
Right.
huge change in what's normal, and thinking
Right.
about, how I condition myself.
Yes.
The more frequently I have something in my life
Yes.
that may or may not be beneficial or healthy or, good for how I think,
Mm-hmm.
it's conditioning.
It is conditioning,
So
100%.
when I do something over and over again, that's normal.
Yes.
And being able to consciously and intentionally choose. So the example you're using is of social media,
Mm-hmm.
but it could really be anything.
It can be anything. It's about breaking patterns because you cannot affect change. You can't in your life unless you're willing to break some patterns. And that is how we get out of the so-called matrix or the conditioning, is we break the pattern. And that's hard at first, but it's necessary if you want to, like if you want to get healthier and you decide, all right, I'm giving up sugar, right? That's going to be uncomfortable at first. If you decide that you want to start an exercise program, that's going to be uncomfortable at first. So change and breaking patterns is not comfortable initially, but it's very liberating if you can stick with it. So one day a week is not a lot and might be a good thing for some people to consider, maybe not for others, and that's fine.
Let's look at this from the perspective of the chaos going in the world right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we've also been conditioned on how to think, how to behave, how to
Yes.
speak,
Hmm.
or not do, be, speak. And
Right.
that's one of the things that I kind of wanted to address today.
Hmm.
So noticing, oh, I'm following this same old pattern that has
Hmm.
become normal for
Yeah.
me. Is this what is right for me?
Yes.
Is this what
Yes.
I really want? Is this what furthers, creates what I want to have happen in the world?
Correct.
And looking at both human design and the gene keys,
Hmm.
they both, help guide us in these areas.
Yes, they do. Very much so. Very much so. You and I were talking about, openness, or definition. I have an open root. And one of the things that does to me is, I can't rest until I accomplish whatever it is I think I need to accomplish. So it's been a practice to just stop, and my mind will immediately go to work on that. But wait, you have this and this and this to do. And I have to kind of just like watch it and allow it to come, and not give in to that temptation of getting up and doing the thing when I should be resting. So wherever we have openness in our human design chart, we will have challenges with conditioning. And a lot of those patterns are formed from that conditioning. And that is absolute. And then going to gene keys, we can get in the shadow and, the fear part of that, oh no, if I don't get that done right now, so there's that, right? But the higher expression is, let's break the pattern. Let's pivot. Let's make another choice here that is skillful and more healthy. May not be comfortable, but it is how we decondition. It is how we become more in alignment with who we are. And so, as we navigate what has happened and we try to heal, breaking patterns can be a very good practice in areas in our life that have kept us stagnant and stuck. And as we navigate the future, same thing. A lot of these practices can be used to help you heal and to be restored, but they can also be used in navigating what's ahead. And so mindfulness, meditation, those are the others we kind of discussed already. Connecting with your spirit guides. You have, forces on your side, you can tap into that as well. You have the small, still voice within you that can give you guidance, um, grounding. I do this in the morning. I take my dog out to use the bathroom and he's very slow. But one of the opportunities that it gives me is to stick my feet on the mossy ground. We have an area of our yard that is covered with moss and it feels like carpet. And I put my feet on that moss and I just stand there and I take in the earth's energy. And that's become a morning practice. So what irritated me before, his slowness, is now a wonderful thing because I stand out there on the moss and just feel the energy of the earth. Spending time in nature, going up and touching a tree. Creative pursuits. If you're a writer or a painter or you like to cook or whatever act, I don't know, like whatever that is, dancing, whatever it is you do, when you're doing that, you can exit the busy brain and it can help you heal. And of course, biofield tuning. I practice that with, I have a set and I will practice it with myself and clients at times. And that is very powerful. That can really change how we feel. It can heal our DNA. And you're more of an expert in that than I am, Sandra, but there's a lot of healing found in sound. Sometimes I'll put on music that is toned to, binaural beats, because it kind of brings a calm to me. Music is fabulous. It activates a part of our brain that helps us to heal. And it actually, I think it hits both hemispheres. So, it kind of improves neuroplasticity. So especially if you listen to music that came out when you were young, that actually activates old neural pathways, so that's kind of fun. Physical. So the body, we can't leave it out because trauma is stored in the body. We can't just think we can do the spiritual and mental work and not do anything for our body. So exercise is great. And it doesn't have to be, cycling or some sort of like CrossFit. It doesn't have to be intense. It can just be taking a walk in your neighborhood or on the trails, or there's something another thing I want to mention called TRE, which was really helpful in my healing from trauma, which is tension release exercises. And you activate certain muscles in the body that cause a tremoring, and that trauma or stress that's held in the body gets an opportunity to be released physically. Body work, you and I both have done that. So myofascial release, any kind of somatic practice, yoga, breath work is powerful. Rhythmic movements like ecstatic dance. I will oftentimes, while I'm in my kitchen by myself, have the music on and just be dancing. And I don't burn myself, don't worry, but I like to do that. And then of course, nutrition. It's important to feed ourselves good, healthy, wholesome food. So those are some of my suggestions to be able to heal and restore, and then also to navigate what's ahead. I really, really, suggest that people employ some of these practices. Find what works for you, what feels good, what's aligned. Don't try to do it exactly how someone else does it. You have your own way, and that's okay. And put it into practice so you can break those patterns. Because I think, back to that quote, we are not ourselves when we are triggered. We become who we think we need to be to survive. So we need to get back to ourselves. Return.
What comes to my mind when we talk about this is this enables me to reclaim power.
Yes. Yes.
Whatever it is that's going on, if it makes me feel afraid or hopeless, then I've lost power.
That's right.
And being able to maintain my center, maintain myself, because I've done the work, because it is work, of cultivating this place that you're talking about, gives me the ability to respond in a more resilient way, where I still have power.
That's right.
And I have the ability to, in the moment when something that is undesirable is happening, I can actually be present and able to make decisions and choices that help me be able to deal with the situation in a way that, that works. Because
that's right.
The reality of life is that things are going to happen that I don't want to have happen.
That's right. That's reality.
So because I have cultivated this getting back to my sense of self, whatever the situation is, that's familiar enough that I can go there when I need to.
Yes, interestingly, Dr. David Briskelly's work on TRE, the way he discovered it is he served in a caretaking role in war-torn countries. And one of the things he noticed about the local people is that when there was something tragic or difficult that occurred, they would cry, they would shake, they would wail, and they would do it then. Okay. And if you look at an animal, they do the same thing. If a dog goes, my dog's terrified of the mailbox. If he sees it get closed, he will get really upset, but he does it right when it happens. Whereas in the Western world, we're really taught to kind of stuff it down. And, I'm going to put that on the shelf and I'll deal with that later. And what happens when we do that is it stores in the body. And so at processing trauma, processing stress, really feeling those feelings all the way through, is a powerful, powerful thing to do, because that equips you to go forward and being totally present with it. You're going to have to be present with it at some point, so why not when it happens, And I had a real tendency to do that. I worked 13 years in an emergency room, and it just simply was not very professional to break down crying every time we lost a patient or when something went wrong. And so I learned to put off my grief and my fear and all those emotions. And, unfortunately, that resulted in burnout. And I was faced with feeling it, but I had to feel a lot of it because it had really stored up. So highly recommend that we learn as we traverse these changes that are occurring, learning to be with the emotions as they occur as much as possible. And I know that's not an easy thing because, you can't be in the grocery store and break down, we have to live life, but try to create some sort of a safe container for yourself.
If I have been as much as possible current with how I feel and experiencing whatever it is that's going on, it's not going to build up.
Right.
So I'm not going to have the dramatic breakdown in the grocery store
Yes. We should
because
not.
I don't have this build up of
Yes.
unresolved stuff that
Yes.
I have to deal with.
Yes.
And when, thinking about marriages, for example, relationships where
Mhm.
they don't deal with what's happening now,
Mhm.
this person stuffs it, that person stuffs it, and they get this big, huge pile of unresolved
Yeah.
gunk. And then when it does come out, it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's so much easier to deal with it in the moment
Yes.
when it's small.
Exactly.
And I think
Exactly.
you agree with me that everything that has ever happened is stored in
Mhm.
my body,
Yes.
in my energy field.
Yes.
I believe in my emotional being, my mental and spiritual being.
Mhm.
Those all store everything,
Yes.
everything
Everything.
that has ever happened.
Yeah.
So if I go in and consciously clean that stuff out, which
Mhm.
is what April's talking about, spending time. What is it that's upset me so much? What is it I have going on? Oh, that puts me
Right.
back so I feel like I was 3.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to take care of that old stuff
Mhm.
that's in my energy field, in my body. And
Yes.
when I take this stuff and I store it in my body year after year after year, that's what leads to symptoms.
That's right. That's
That's
right.
what leads to dis-ease.
Exactly.
So if I spend my adult life consciously like taking that stuff out of there,
Yes.
so much more freedom becomes available
Yes.
and less illness.
Yes. And that's surfing. The other is getting overtaken by the wave, and, a skilled sailor never became skilled by smooth seas. And in this world, we have a bumpy ride. Dolores Cannon calls this a gangster planet. We come here because we have a lot to learn, and it's that contrast, those difficulties, those hardships that are teachers for us. And I would like to pretend like those things aren't there, but they are. But that doesn't mean I can't have joy and peace and prosperity and abundance. And it doesn't mean that I can't have all the wonderful things that life has to offer. But I do have to learn how to surf. I do need to do that for myself. And that means, moving with what occurs, rather than resisting it, feeling it to it's the degree it needs to be felt, not judging yourself, not judging other people, parenting yourself like that little child. Oh, look, you're feeling kind of tired, you need a nap, and it's okay that you're crying. Like, it's okay. It was a lot today. I understand. We can do that. We can do that for small children, but we somehow forget to do it for ourselves. And we need to do it for ourselves, and we need to do it for one another.
You and I pay attention to these things on a daily basis, on a minute to minute basis.
Yes.
As a massage therapist and now Biofield tuning and human design practitioner for a while, I find that still there are adults when I ask them how they feel
Mm.
or I ask them what they want,
Mm.
they don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there are still people who don't pay any attention to this stuff at all.
Right.
Wherever you are, whoever's listening, watching this, you start where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people when I'm working with them, I ask them how they feel and they don't know.
Yeah.
And I say, by me asking you and you paying attention, you start developing it.
Right.
By asking
Exactly.
yourself the question and expecting yourself to come up with an answer,
Hmm.
not that it's necessarily the right answer, but come
Right.
up with an answer, you start to know how you feel.
Yes.
And I think about, why is it that we get to this point where we don't know how we
Hmm.
feel?
Hmm.
And I believe that it starts when we're young children,
Hmm.
not allowed to
Yes. Don't
feel
cry.
or express how we feel.
Yes.
And
Do you remember hearing when you were a kid, don't cry or I'll give you something to cry about? I mean,
yeah,
it was, and that was kind of like definitely in our generation and probably others, where it's just not socially acceptable for you to have emotions. We're born with the capacity to feel, but, it gets shut down between here and there. And I certainly can understand that. It used to take me, when I lost loved ones, a year to grieve, a year to feel that, because I was so trained and so conditioned, as we've talked about before, just to shut it down, and after a while, you just become numb and you can't get in touch with it, or it's difficult to. So, inquiry, like you said, you know, asking yourself, what is it I really want? What is it I'm feeling? And it doesn't have to be like, I want to be Picasso. It can be, I would like a banana right now. Start small. Like, I would like to go sit on the porch. I would like to, have a kombucha. I mean, it can be small things, learning how to get back in touch with your wanter, that part of yourself that knows what it wants, and your feeler. How are you feeling right now? I'm feeling tired and I feel like I don't want to be social. That's okay. Own that. Don't push yourself to be or do something other than who you are. Start small.
I like the term you use. It's surfing.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
taking whatever it is that's going on
Hmm.
and work with that, be conscious
Yes.
of it.
Yes.
And, thinking about the stresses going on in the world right now,
Hmm.
sometimes surfing is, oh, that doesn't feel good.
Oh,
And it
yeah.
helps me know, where do I want to put my attention?
Right. Right.
Oh, maybe this is a good time to disconnect
Yes.
from the media, the television, whatever, because
Hmm.
it's creating stress over here.
Yes.
And I don't want that.
Yeah, paying attention to those internal signals. Can you feel it in your body? Can you pay attention to, all of a sudden I have tension in my neck and, there's news running in the background, like it's not feeling good. Maybe flip that off, turn it off. Or I witnessed someone having an argument on social media, and I can feel my legs, tense up, like, so paying attention to the body is an amazing communicator. And when it starts to tense up, or to grow fatigued, or you feel a sense of irritation, like, that's your body's trying to tell you, look, that needs to be moved away from. That's a warning light on the dash of your vehicle. Something is not aligned here. And if we can start to pay attention to that and really honor that, then we don't find ourselves, totally burned out, disconnected, traumatized. The three states of trauma: fight, flight, and fawn. And people don't mention the fawn part. That's an important part. That's when you just kind of go numb. If you ever happen to run upon a fawn in nature that hasn't gotten its sea legs quite yet, and it's really a baby, it's young, you will notice they won't run from you. They'll just kind of sit there frozen. And I feel like a lot of us are in that space. Some of us have been fighting, some of us have been running, and some of us have been fawning. And that's what you're talking about, when we don't know what we're feeling, and we don't know what we want. That's the fawn. It's just kind of like stuck. It doesn't know what to do. It senses danger, but it just can't really even, you know, conceptualize that. So we have to get back in touch with our bodies. And a lot of these suggestions we've been talking about can help you to do that. It has to be unique to you. It has to be a good fit for you. But you can feel this in your body. You can feel it. So learn to just observe that, because the body will speak to you. Yeah.
This has been wonderful.
It has. I love this. This has been so on my heart for a while, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be able to share this. And I hope it's helpful to whoever comes across it. And thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Yeah. So, just what comes to mind to say is be conscious and choose where I want to be.
Yes.
Again, moment to moment. It's surfing the wave.
Yes.
And that enables me to be most able to respond to whatever the situation is. And it's empowering to me.
Absolutely.
To have that control over my thought processes and my emotional state.
Yes. Lovely. Yes. Yes. I love it. Exactly.
Well, thank you everybody for watching. It's been wonderful spending this time with April, and we may do it again.
Yay. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Sandra, for having me
Thank
on.
you.